I just don't believe that what's being emitted by a lot of these large facilities is particularly a beneficial thing to take in. I think that complicates the whole situation. And the scientific research seems to indicate that also. So I feel like I'm on pretty firm ground to say that air pollution hurts you. And, the more we can reduce it from my standpoint, the better off we are. That's why I like command and control versus these economic arguments like, we'll put a price on pollution and everything. Me, I just want to say, here's your limit, and if you got a stack, you got to reduce it to that limit. Seems like that's much easier to do than talk about something is worth $50 a ton, and that this guy can reduce it, or this guy can pay some other guy for the amount that he's reduced, so he doesn't have to reduce it. I mean, think about the economic and the environmental unfairness of it all. If I live next to a facility, and this facility doesn't want to reduce its SO2, for instance, okay, and buys a credit from somebody else who's reduced that SO2, that person sitting there is stuck breathing that stuff. Why should they be forced to breathe that? Seems to me a basic tenet, a basic right everyone has is to breathe, just to live. So those economic mechanisms of reducing air pollution, I don't like them. I'm an old throwback. I like command and control. Put a limit on that sucker, and then I can test it. Then I can see if it's there. If you have mumbo jumbo about paper and you bought credits and everything, for an investigator, it's very confusing trying to figure out whether you have met your cap or not met your cap, those kinds of things. So for me, I prefer simplicity. I always tell companies, the worst thing you can have is a confused investigator in your facility. So whatever you do, make sure it's simple so that we can understand what it is you're doing, because you don't want an investigator who's confused about what it is you're doing. And so I think these economic ways of reducing air pollution are very confusing, at least for me, and it's much easier just to put a limit. And besides that, I think we should maximize pollution reduction. So far, we haven't found any limit that is good for you. And so I think it's better to err reducing it than to err and say, well, let's let them put a little bit more out. That seems to be going in the wrong direction for me.